Thanksgiving, that's a great time. Lots of people volunteer. They're with their family, they're with their loved ones. Maybe grandma's wondering what to eat, and there's this big spread laid out, right? But if grandma has Alzheimer's or a similar disease, she's gonna be overwhelmed by the variety of options that are laid out. So instead of just handing her a plate and be like, okay, go for it, what you could do as a caregiver, as their loved one, you could walk with them and ask them, hey, would you like some turkey? No? Okay, move to the next one. Oh, would you like some ham? Okay, let's take a piece. So you add a piece. Again, you don't want to overdo it. You want to simplify these tasks.
Welcome to the Care Chronicles with a Caring Touch, where compassion meets wisdom in every episode, dedicated to our beloved seniors and caregivers. Join us as we explore the heartwarming stories, experts' insights, and practical advice that make every moment with our elderly truly special. Get ready for insightful conversations, practical tips, and heartfelt moments that warm the heart and nourish the soul. Because here at A Caring Touch, we believe in laughter, learning, and love as essential ingredients to aging gracefully. So tune in, relax, let A Caring Touch be your guide to making every moment count.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Care Chronicles by A Caring Touch. I'm your host, Avishka, and it's a pleasure to have you today on today's show. Last time we talked a little bit about connection, and today I wanted to dive into collaboration. And this is collaboration in caring for someone who has Alzheimer's or similar, or anyone involved. So, as we talked about last time, so Alzheimer's doesn't just affect the client itself, it does affect the family and the caregiver as well. It affects the loved ones who are grieving a loss of a person that's still there with them. And it's happening slowly and right in front of them. It affects the care team. So it affects the care team that coordinates and, communicates throughout their shifts due to different settings as well. It also affects the direct caregiver who is there for all of those small everyday moments. So today's episode, I want to break down different ways to collaborate as a caregiver with the client or loved one, with the family member that's involved, with other family members that may be wanting to be involved, and also how to collaborate with the care team that's taking care of this client or has taken care of this person. So collaborating with your loved one or client individually, directly. So let's start by understanding how we can do it, how we can collaborate versus doing something for them. So a good example would be, when someone's living with Alzheimer's, it can be tempting to just do the things because it's quicker, it's more efficient in your mind. It could be that. And tasks like dressing them or having them make a decision, say it's for lunch, instead of, this is an example we talked about last time, just talking through each of those decisions versus saying, okay, I'm going to decide for them. And it's also easy for us, to move quickly through routines. It feels, again, more efficient and it does feel like it'll help. However, we have to know, when we can work with our loved one or with our client versus doing something for them. So what we don't realize when we do something on their behalf for them while they're still able to do that thing, it affects their sense of capability, it affects the person's sense of self, and it affects their dignity at the end of the day. So every task we take over entirely is one more thing they feel like they've lost. So we don't want to do that. And so instead of doing that, let's think about how we can involve them and give parts that, your loved one can still do. And even if it takes a little longer, that's okay. Have them collaborate and work with you. A good example would be, say, your loved one or client who you're caring for wants to, dress themselves in the morning. So instead of, you walk in, we talked about it before where, you walk in from the front, you introduce yourself every time, regardless. We talked about that in communication. And now you've had a good conversation that morning, see how they are, see if they've eaten. Or maybe it's so early that you're getting there as they're about to head down to breakfast, but they need to get ready. And you start with helping them getting dressed. So instead of, lining out the clothes and being like, hey, here you go, put your shirt on, what you can do is start with, you know, if there's a decision to be made with what outfit to go, or maybe a shirt, make it simple. You can have them, blue shirt, green shirt, red shirt. I think it's better if it's like two distinct colors. So let's say blue shirt and red shirt. And you're like, okay, which one do you want to wear? And they'll pick one. And then you can show them, hey, this is the item of clothing that we're going to put on. And then you can either lay it on their bed, you can hand it to them. If it's on the bed, you can be like, you can ask them, hey, next, do you want to pick it up? And once they've got it in their hands, walk them through each of the motions. Sometimes that would really help them understand that this is something they're doing for themselves. So you can start with, let's put your arms in the sleeves. So you put one arm, one instruction at a time. Again, we want to keep it simple. And then you put on the next one, next arm. And after each step, be like, okay, good job. Let's do it. You're doing so well. Let's do the next part. And then, you know, encourage them and celebrate that moment so that they feel genuinely excited and genuinely grateful that they're able to still do this part of the task. So, again, use genuine affirmations. Don't say something completely offlandish. The approach sometimes is just the task simplification and, again, celebration of that. This honors where the client or loved one is at without rushing past that task. And along with those same lines, when you're communicating with a client or loved one, limit the choices, like we talked about with the shirt. You give them two options. You're not showing them the entire closet and asking, hey, what do you want to wear? That would lead to more frustration. So, what we want to do is help simplify these daily tasks so they're able to make these decisions for themselves and be present and still be independent. So, another example could be, again, Thanksgiving. That's a great time. I know lots of people volunteer. They're with their family, they're with their loved ones, they're, maybe grandma's wondering what to eat, and there's this big spread laid out, right? But if grandma has Alzheimer's or a similar disease, she's going to be overwhelmed by the variety of options that are laid out. So instead of, you know, just handing her a plate and be like, okay, go for it. What you could do as a caregiver, as their loved one, you could walk with them and ask them, hey, would you like some turkey? No? Okay. Move to the next one. Oh, would you like some ham? Okay, let's take a feast. So you add a feast. Again, you don't want to overdo it. You want to simplify these tasks. If you ask them, what they want for lunch or what they want to eat, and it just makes it very vague and general, that can lead to frustrations because that is, a variety of things that they're supposed to remember. Even if it's a multitude of, like, say it's three things and they're wondering, oh, what am I going to have for lunch? Am I going to have soup, salad, sandwich, rice, whatever you'd like? That's four different things that they have to sort through and think through without, getting frustrated. And honestly, that can be overwhelming to have a variety of options. So, same principle for as instructions, simplify putting your clothes on, simplify the meal, simplify the task. If it's an activity that you're wanting to know if they want to do this activity or another activity, ask one at a time. Ask one question and have them make one choice at a time. And if they don't respond, repeat the question. Don't paraphrase it, don't rephrase it. That just adds more to the process. So, next, let's talk about collaborating, say, if you're a caregiver with the family members of your client, or if you're a loved one trying to communicate with other family members of, the loved one that you're caring for as a caregiver. So, family can get tricky, and just know that, your family or the family of this client that you're caring for, that family needs support and almost sometimes just as much as the client. So it just depends on what it is. And most it's emotional support, but just understand that they will have questions for you and to make sure that the client or loved one is getting taken care of, it's best to collaborate and work with the family on the everyday task and the everyday things. So, an example that I have is, looking at it from a client's perspective. Picture a daughter arriving to visit their father, and their father has mid-stage Alzheimer's. She walks in, she looks at him, and, he asks, "Who are you?" And if that were my initial reaction, I would kind of feel devastated if my dad didn't recognize me. But the daughter may come to you at that point and ask questions and, be like, "Hey, he didn't recognize me." They might wonder, is the disease progressing more? Is it getting worse? And maybe they're wondering if they did something wrong or said something wrong. So at that point, your role would be in that moment to be calm, be honest, and compassionate. You reassure her that this is, part of the disease and that changes in recognition are expected. And they have nothing to do with whether the father loves her or remembers her or has chosen to forget her. So it is not selective. Again, this is neurological. You could also then go on once you've consoled her, you could speak to her on ways to connect at this stage and what has worked for you. So give her, things that have worked for you when you've spoken and interacted with the client or loved one. So when you sit with him, some examples could be, you can tell her, when you sit with him, try talking about the past, things from when you were young or from his working years. So these long term memories often stay clearer for longer. And you could also speak to him about his previous hobbies, interests, and another great option that we talked about in the connection episode. You could try to play his favorite music and that might spark some memories and help her be there with him in that moment. That shift will reframe the entire visit, and this moment becomes an opportunity to connect in a way that families are often, they're navigating anticipatory grief, right? They're mourning someone who is still alive. So be patient with your family members, be patient with your clients' family members and their emotions. And if you're someone that's caring for a family member, give yourself some grace as well. And listen and be heard without judgment. There are resources available, like a home health and hospice agency is one that can assist, but there are other caregiver agencies available. There's different facilities that can assist as well. So just know that you're not alone. So our last part on collaboration is with the care team. So as a primary caregiver, you are often the person with the most eyes on your client. So you see them in the morning when they're groggy, in the afternoon when they're more alert, at nighttime maybe when they're a little more sleepy. You're there when they're calm and when they're agitated, and that means you hold so much information that no one else has. So always pay attention. If you notice that your client is, say, getting agitated every afternoon when the TV is on and it's loud and the news channel is on, maybe take note of that and get ahead of it next time. When your client is having a difficult moment, say an episode of anger, of confusion, of distress, make a mental note of the time, what was happening around them, and what might have triggered it. These are all very useful tools for the care team to know, for the family member to also know and understand for themselves so that they get ahead of it before it happens next time. Document this information. Always make sure that you're reporting it and making sure that the entire team is aware. So the team does not comprise of just you. Thankfully, hopefully, you have a care team with you and you have other family members as well if you are the family member caring for your loved one. Some triggers could be, television, like we talked about, time of day, if they're hungry, if they're not hungry, and, depending on the situation, it could be maybe they had a visitor, maybe they haven't had a visitor in a while. Those things could trigger that as well. So, since I mentioned the TV, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Fast moving images and loud sound, I think that's overstimulating for you and me. Just imagine for someone who's going through the Alzheimer's disease progress. So, Another thing that I've also learned is that sometimes some clients at certain stages of the disease may not be able to distinguish between what they're seeing on the television screen and what's actually happening in the room. So, a violent news story or a dramatic TV show can feel very real to that client or loved one, and it could be frightening to them. So, just understand that as well. When your client or loved one seems agitated or anxious, one of the first things to do is try to simply turn off the television or radio, remove them from, the situation that they're in if it's possible. And you could close the blinds if the outside is busy. Try to work on how to mitigate those triggers as well. And if there's a visitor there, you could ask a visitor, hey, kindly to step out for a moment just until your client or loved one, is able to go past that emotion and through that emotion. So, quiet and calm are powerful tools for anyone working with someone who has Alzheimer's disease. So, some final thoughts would be, involve your client, involve your loved one in their own care. So, again, one step, one choice, one success at a time. And whenever you're collaborating with family members, families are partners in care. So, meet their grief with patience and give them tools, not just reassurance. If you are a family member caring for a loved one, speak to other direct family members or chosen family members. Give yourself some grace, have an avenue where you can also, step away and take care of you. And there are also, home care agencies, home health, and if qualified, hospice agencies that can also assist in the care of your loved ones. Another thing is you are the eyes of the care team. So observe, document, and report behavioral patterns. Manage the environment that your client or loved one is in, reduce noise, limit television, create a calm as possible environment for them to be in. Collaboration isn't just a professional skill, it's a way of saying to your client or loved one, to their family member, and to your team that we're in this together. That includes you. So no one carries this alone. And if you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, please comment, subscribe, give us a shout out, leave a review for us. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on this heartwarming journey with a caring touch. Be sure to check out our website and connect with us on social media for more stories, resources, and ways to get involved. We're excited for you to join us again in our next episode, where we'll continue to explore the beauty of aging with grace and compassion and dive deeper into topics that matter to our elderly community. Until then, stay connected, stay caring, and we'll talk to you again soon on the Care Chronicles with a Caring Touch.